The scar tissue stretched as he smiled, and Naomi felt her stomach drop. "Your father sold you to me for $300,000, Damien Whitlock said, sliding the cashier's check across the mahogany desk. "What he doesn't know is that I would have paid $10 million. You see, Mrs. Whitlock, 8 years ago, I killed your aunt in a fire I caused, and I've been searching for a way to destroy myself ever since. Marrying you seemed like the perfect punishment." Naomi's vision blurred, her dark brown skin prickling with cold sweat as she stood in the study of Whitlock Manor, still wearing the courthouse dress she'd been married in 3 hours ago. The man before her, with his pale, scarred face and eyes like winter storms, had just confessed to murder and self-destruction in the same breath. And somehow, impossibly, she wasn't running. But let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began, because the darkest love stories never start with a wedding. They start with a knife. 48 hours earlier, Naomi Winters was bent over her drafting table at 2 a.m, sketching the skyline project that would make her career. At 25, she was the youngest lead architect at Morrison & Associates, and the Thompson Tower would be her masterpiece. 73 floors of glass and ambition, reaching toward everything she'd sacrificed to achieve. Her phone buzzed. Her father's name appeared on the screen. She almost didn't answer. Raymond Winters had been spiraling for months, ever since the underground poker games turned into backroom baccarat with men who wore expensive suits and made people disappear. But he was still her father, the man who'd raised her alone after her mother's accident 3 years ago. "Daddy, it's 2 a.m. "Naomi, baby girl, I need you to come home. Right now. It's about your mother." The drive to her childhood home in the suburbs took 37 minutes. She counted everyone. When she burst through the front door, she found her father sitting in the dark living room, and she knew immediately something was catastrophically wrong. "Is Mom okay? Did something happen at the facility?" "Your mother is fine. For now." Raymond stood and Naomi saw the gun tucked into his waistband. "But that changes in 48 hours unless you do exactly what I say." "What are you talking about?" "I owe some very dangerous people a substantial amount of money. Money I don't have. But I found a solution. A man named Damien Whitlock has agreed to clear my debts completely. All you have to do is marry him." The words didn't make sense. They were sounds without meaning, like a foreign language she'd never studied. "Have you lost your mind?" "I've lost everything else," Raymond roared, pulling the gun and pressing it against his own temple. "Everything, Naomi. The house, the cars, my reputation. The only thing I have left to bargain with is you, and if you don't do this, they're going to kill me. Then they're going to go to your mother's facility and unplug her machines one by one while I watch from hell." Naomi's hands started shaking. "You can't be serious." "In 48 hours you will meet Damien Whitlock at the courthouse and become his wife, or I will drive to Meadowbrook Care Center and disconnect your mother's life support myself. And before you think about calling the police, remember that I'm still listed as her primary medical decision-maker. I have every legal right to end her treatment." The room tilted. Naomi grabbed the doorframe to steady herself. "Who is Damien Whitlock?" "A recluse. A monster, some say. There was an accident 8 years ago, a fire at one of his factories. They say it left him horribly disfigured. They say he's been hiding ever since, building his empire from the shadows." Raymond's eyes were wild, desperate. "But he's also the richest man in the city, and for reasons I don't understand, he specifically requested you." "Requested me? He doesn't even know me." "Apparently, he does." Naomi spent the next 48 hours in a fog of disbelief and rage. She called lawyers who told her that her father did indeed have the legal authority to make medical decisions for her mother. She called the police, who said that arranged marriages weren't illegal if both parties consented. She called her best friend, Dr. Lena Park, who worked at her mother's facility. "There has to be another way," Lena insisted, meeting her at a coffee shop 30 hours before the deadline. "If there is, I haven't found it." Naomi stared at her untouched latte. I've been going through every scenario. I could run, take my mother and disappear. But Dad knows people now, dangerous people. They'd find us. I could refuse and dare him to go through with it. But Lena, I've seen his eyes. He's not bluffing. The gambling has destroyed him. He's capable of anything. What do you know about this Damien Whitlock? I've been researching him obsessively. There's almost nothing online. A few business articles from years ago before the fire. Photos from charity events where his face is always turned away from the camera. The tabloids call him the Phantom of Park Avenue. They say he hasn't been seen in public in 8 years. And you're going to marry this man? Naomi's laugh was bitter. I'm going to save my mother's life. If that requires marrying a stranger, then that's what I'll do. But she didn't tell Lena about the nightmares she'd been having. Dreams of fire and screaming, of a scarred face looming over her in the dark, of her Aunt Iris, her mother's baby sister who died 8 years ago in an accident no one ever wanted to discuss in detail. The courthouse was brutalist architecture at its most oppressive. Grey concrete and narrow windows, a building designed to make you feel small and insignificant. Naomi wore a simple cream dress she'd bought at a department store that morning. No white. She refused to pretend this was anything other than what it was. A transaction. Are you still watching? Because what happens next will change everything you think you know about love and revenge. Hit that like button right now. The ceremony room was empty except for a judge who looked bored and a man standing with his back to her, staring out the window. Mr. Whitlock, the judge said, your bride has arrived. He turned, and Naomi's prepared speech died in her throat. She'd expected a monster. The tabloids had prepared her for something grotesque. But Damien Whitlock was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are beautiful. Tall and lean, with pale skin that made his dark hair look almost black. And yes, there was a scar, a silver line tracing from his left eyebrow down to his jaw. But it didn't make him hideous. It made him look like a fallen angel, something celestial that had crashed to earth. His eyes were the colour of storm clouds, and when they locked onto hers, Naomi felt like she was drowning. You came, he said, his voice a low rumble that she felt in her chest. I gave you an out, you know. I told your father that if you didn't show, the debt would be forgiven anyway. But here you are. You told him what? Damien's smile was sharp. Did he not mention that? How interesting. It seems your father's desperation runs deeper than mere debt. He wants you gone, Naomi. Married off and out of his life. The question is why. The ceremony took 11 minutes. Naomi said, I do, and felt like she was signing her own death warrant. When the judge pronounced them married, Damien took her hand and brought it to his lips. Welcome to your nightmare wife. The Mercedes was silent as it glided through the city streets. Naomi pressed herself against the door, maintaining maximum distance from the stranger who was now legally her husband. You don't have to fear me, Damien said quietly. Whatever else I am, I'm not a man who forces himself on unwilling women. Then what are you? That's the question, isn't it? He turned to look at her, and Naomi saw something in his eyes that looked almost like pain. What am I? A businessman? A murderer? A man trying to atone for sins that can never be forgiven? Perhaps all of the above? You're talking in riddles. Then let me speak plainly. He pressed a button and a privacy screen rose between them and the driver. 8 years ago, I owned a textile factory in the industrial district. I was 24 years old and convinced I was untouchable. I cut costs wherever I could. Safety inspections were expensive, so I delayed them. Fire suppression systems were working well enough, so I didn't upgrade them. And then, one night, an electrical fire started in the basement. Naomi's blood ran cold. The Whitlock factory fire. You've heard of it? Everyone's heard of it. 15 people died. 15 people died because I was too arrogant to spend money on safety measures that would have saved them. Damien's voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands were clenched into fists. I was there that night, working late in my office on the 3rd floor. When the alarms went off, I ran. But then I heard the screaming, and I turned back. I pulled 6 people out of the building before part of the structure collapsed on me. That's how I got this scar. But 9 others didn't make it out. Why are you telling me this? Because one of those 9 was a 24-year-old woman named Iris Winters, your mother's sister, your aunt. The world stopped spinning. Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. You killed my aunt? Yes. And you married me? Yes. Why? The word was a scream ripped from somewhere deep inside her. Damien finally looked at her, and Naomi saw tears streaming down his scarred face. Because for 8 years, I've been searching for a way to punish myself that would actually mean something. I've given away hundreds of millions. I've built schools and hospitals. I've funded research and scholarships, but none of it brought them back. None of it made me feel anything except more guilty. And marrying me is supposed to be your punishment? Marrying you is supposed to be my destruction. His voice broke. 3 years ago, I saw you give your last $100 to a homeless woman outside your building. You didn't know anyone was watching. You thought you were alone. And I saw something in that moment that I'd never seen before. Genuine goodness. The kind of pure, selfless compassion that people like me can never possess. And I became obsessed with you. Naomi pressed herself harder against the door. You're insane. Probably. I learned everything about you. Your mother's accident, your father's gambling, your work as an architect, your dreams of designing buildings that touch the sky. And I fell in love with an idea of you. A fantasy. The pure woman who could somehow redeem the monster. This is sick. I know. But then your father came to me 2 months ago, desperate and pathetic, offering his daughter in exchange for debt forgiveness. And I saw my opportunity. Not to save you, Naomi, to torture myself. Because loving you, living with you every day, knowing what I took from your family, that's a punishment worthy of my crimes. The car pulled through iron gates and up a long driveway. Whitlock Manor rose before them, a Gothic mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from a nightmare. I'm going to be sick, Naomi whispered. There's a bathroom in your suite, East Wing, 3rd floor. I've prepared everything you'll need. We won't share a bedroom. We won't share anything you don't want to share. But you're here now, Mrs. Whitlock. And I'm going to make absolutely certain you understand exactly what kind of man you've married. If you think you know where this story is going, you're wrong. Comment twisted below and keep watching, because we're just getting started. Naomi's suite was obscenely luxurious. A bedroom the size of her entire apartment. A walk-in closet filled with designer clothes in exactly her size. A bathroom with a soaking tub that looked like it belonged in a spa. On the nightstand was a framed photo of a young woman with warm brown skin and bright eyes. Aunt Iris. Naomi grabbed the frame and hurled it across the room, where it shattered against the wall. I see you found my gift. She spun to find Damien standing in the doorway, still wearing his wedding suit. Get out! In a moment. But first, I need to show you something. He held up a tablet. Your father's debt wasn't $300,000. It was $47,000. I paid him $300,000 to sweeten the deal. Would you like to know what he did with the extra money? Against her better judgment, Naomi looked at the screen. It showed bank records, transfers, credit card statements. He gambled it, Damien said flatly. Every penny. In the 48 hours between when I paid him and when you married me, your father took that money to an underground casino and lost it all. Then he left the country. He's currently in Monaco. That's why he was so desperate to get you married off. He was never planning to stay and face the consequences. Naomi's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the bed, her entire world crumbling. You're lying. I wish I was. Damien set the tablet on the dresser. Your father is a coward and a fool. But he did give me one gift. You. And now you're trapped here with a monster who killed your aunt, while the man who sold you is drinking champagne on a yacht in the Mediterranean. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to make me hate you? Because you should hate me. Damien's composure finally cracked. You should despise me, revile me, want to see me destroyed. That's the whole point. I don't deserve your forgiveness or your understanding or your compassion. I deserve your hatred, and I'm going to earn it every single day. You want me to hate you. I need you to hate me. It's the only way this works. Something shifted in Naomi's chest. Through her shock and grief and rage, she saw something she recognized. Not a monster, not a villain, just a man who hated himself so much that he'd constructed an elaborate prison and locked himself inside. And suddenly, she understood what her revenge would be. No, she said quietly. No? Naomi stood, drawing herself to her full height. You want hatred? You want me to destroy you with my rage? I won't give you that satisfaction. You've spent 8 years punishing yourself, and it hasn't worked. You're still here, still breathing, still building your empire of guilt. So here's what's going to happen, Damien Whitlock. I'm going to stay in this house. I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to treat you with the exact same compassion I showed that homeless woman 3 years ago. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You want punishment? Try living with someone who refuses to give you what you think you deserve. Try existing next to someone who sees through your self-loathing theatrics and treats you like a human being anyway. Damien's face went pale. That's cruel. That's justice. You don't get to orchestrate your own destruction, Damien. You don't get to control how this story ends. From now on, I'm writing the narrative, and I'm going to make you live with yourself until you finally figure out that punishment isn't the same as redemption. She walked past him toward the door. Where are you going? To visit my mother. I go every evening at 7. I'm not going to let your guilt complex interrupt my routine. I'll drive you. No. You're going to stay here and think about what I said. And tomorrow, we're going to have breakfast together. And you're going to tell me about the other 9 people who died in that fire. Their names, their families, their dreams, all of them. Because if you want me to understand your guilt, I need to understand their lives. That night, sitting beside her mother's hospital bed, Naomi told the unconscious woman everything. I've married the man who killed Aunt Iris, Mom. And the crazy thing is, I think he's been suffering more than any of us. He's built a cage out of his guilt and climbed inside, and he wants me to be his jailer. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to set him free instead, even if he hates me for it. Her mother's machines beeped their steady rhythm, counting heartbeats that might never lead to consciousness again. Dr. Park says you might be able to hear me. I hope you can. Because I need you to know that I'm not giving up. Not on you, not on myself, and not even on the broken man I married. Aunt Iris wouldn't want me to drown in hatred. She was too full of light for that. So I'm going to honor her memory by refusing to let her death turn me into something dark. If this story is making you feel things, smash that subscribe button. You need to see how this ends. The first breakfast was excruciating. Damien sat across from Naomi in the mansion's formal dining room, looking like he was facing a firing squad. Tell me about the first person, Naomi said, cutting into her omelette. I don't think... You promised. Tell me about the first person who died in the fire. Damien's jaw clenched. Marcus Chen, 42 years old, married with 3 children. He worked the night shift because it paid better, and he was saving for his daughter's college education. She's at Yale now, studying medicine. I've been paying her tuition anonymously. That's good, but she doesn't know it's you, does she? No. Why not? Because she deserves better than blood money from her father's killer. Or because you're too cowardly to face her gratitude, Naomi said mildly. Tell me about the second person. They went through all 15 names over the course of a week. Each breakfast, another story. Another life cut short, another family destroyed. Naomi listened to every word, memorizing details, asking questions, refusing to let Damien hide behind vague guilt. You're torturing me, he said on the 7th day. I'm making you remember them as people, not just weights on your conscience. There's a difference. Something else was happening too. Against all logic, Naomi was beginning to see past Damien's carefully constructed walls. The way he'd arranged for the best possible care for her mother, upgrading her to a private suite with round-the-clock specialists. The anonymous scholarship fund he'd created in Aunt Iris's name, which had already sent 12 young women to college. The community centre he'd built in the neighbourhood where the factory had stood, with a memorial wall listing every name. You're trying so hard to hate yourself that you can't see you're actually doing good, she told him one evening in the library. They'd fallen into a routine. Dinner together, then retiring to the library where Damien read and Naomi sketched designs for buildings she might never construct. Good doesn't erase bad. No, but it matters anyway. You can't bring them back, Damien, but you can honour their memories by being better than the man you were, by actually living instead of just existing in this mausoleum of guilt. Why do you care? I killed your aunt. I manipulated you into marriage. I'm using you as a tool for my own self-destruction. Why aren't you running as far away from me as possible? Naomi set down her sketchpad. You want to know the truth? Because I recognise myself in you. When my mother had her accident 3 years ago, I blamed myself. I was supposed to drive her to her appointment that day, but I cancelled because I had an important meeting. She took a cab instead. The cab was hit by a drunk driver. She's been in a coma ever since. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? If I'd been there, if I'd driven her myself, she'd be fine. Every day I visit her, I'm visiting my own failure. So when I look at you, I don't just see the man who killed my aunt. I see someone who understands what it's like to carry the weight of what-ifs and if-onlys. Something cracked in Damien's expression. You're destroying me. No, I'm saving you, whether you want me to or not. The first time Damien laughed in Naomi's presence was 3 weeks into their marriage. She'd attempted to cook dinner as a surprise, and it had gone spectacularly wrong. I think your chicken is trying to escape, Damien said, watching smoke pour from the oven. It's not smoke, it's steam, probably. That's definitely smoke, and possibly a small fire. I'm an architect, not a chef. Naomi grabbed a fire extinguisher and unleashed a cloud of white powder into the oven. When the smoke cleared, they both stared at the charred remains of what had once been poultry. And then Damien laughed. A real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. I can't remember the last time I did that, he said, wonder in his voice. Laughed? Felt anything except guilt. Naomi reached across the kitchen island and took his hand. It was the first time she'd initiated physical contact since their wedding day. Then we need to make sure you do it more often. That night, something shifted between them. A wall came down brick by brick. Damien started joining her on visits to her mother. He'd read aloud from novels while Naomi held her mother's hand, his deep voice filling the hospital room with stories of adventure and romance. Do you think she can hear us? He asked one evening. I have to believe she can. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Hope, Damien said quietly. The point is hope. Something I'd forgotten about until you reminded me. 1 month into their marriage, Veronica Hastings made her first appearance. She swept into a charity gala where Naomi and Damien were making their first public appearance as a couple, resplendent in diamonds and malice. Well, well, the recluse emerges, and with such an interesting companion. Tell me, dear, do you know what you've married into? Naomi met her gaze steadily. I know exactly who I married. Do you? Do you know about the fire, the deaths, the guilt that's been eating him alive for 8 years? I know all of it. He told me everything the day we married. Veronica's perfect smile faltered. Then you're either incredibly forgiving or incredibly stupid. Or I'm incredibly tired of people who think tragedy defines us forever. Naomi stepped closer. Who are you exactly? Besides someone who crashes parties to spread misery. I'm the woman who was engaged to Damien before the fire, before he decided guilt was a better bedfellow than love. Damien appeared at Naomi's side, his hand finding the small of her back. Veronica, you weren't invited. I don't need invitations, darling. I thought your little wife should know that you're incapable of actual love. You're only capable of self-flagellation. She's just your latest method of torture. You're wrong, Naomi said, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. He's capable of love. He's just forgotten how. But I'm reminding him. After they left the gala early, Damien drove them to a clifftop overlooking the city. I'm sorry about Veronica. She's been trying to hurt me for years. Why did you leave her? Because after the fire, I couldn't let anyone close. She wanted to help, to fix me, to make everything better, but I didn't want to be fixed. I wanted to suffer, so I pushed her away until she finally gave up. She's been bitter ever since. Do you still love her? Damien turned to look at Naomi, and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart race. I don't know if what I felt for her was ever really love. It was easy, comfortable. But it never challenged me. It never made me want to be better. And now? Now I'm married to a woman who refuses to let me drown in my own darkness, who sees all my worst parts and still sits across from me at breakfast every morning, who's making me remember what it feels like to be human. He reached out and tucked a braid behind her ear. Now I'm terrified because I'm starting to feel things I don't deserve to feel. Like what? Like maybe redemption isn't about punishment. Maybe it's about learning to live again, learning to love again. Even if that means loving someone I manipulated into marriage, someone whose family I destroyed. Naomi's breath caught. Damien. I'm falling in love with you, Naomi. Actual love, not the obsession I felt before. And it's the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced because you have every reason to hate me, but you won't. You keep refusing to give me what I think I deserve. That's because you're wrong about what you deserve, she kissed him. It was soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. And when Damien kissed her back, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her close, Naomi felt something crack open inside her chest. This wasn't the arranged marriage she'd been forced into. This was something else entirely. Something real. Comment. Redemption, if you believe love can heal even the deepest wounds. The next 3 months transformed everything. Naomi moved her drafting table into the library, working on her designs while Damien managed his empire from across the room. They fell into a rhythm that felt less like cohabitation and more like partnership. He attended meetings with her firm, offering insights from his years in business. She helped him redesign the community centre, making it more welcoming and functional. They cooked dinner together with Naomi learning from Damien's surprisingly skilled hands. They visited her mother together every evening, reading and talking and hoping for a miracle that seemed increasingly unlikely. And they fell deeper in love. Tell me about your dreams, Damien asked one night as they lay together in the library, her head on his chest. I want to design a building that changes the skyline. Something so beautiful and innovative that people stop in their tracks to look at it. I want to prove that architecture can be art and function simultaneously. What's stopping you? Money. Vision. Opportunity. She traced the scar on his jaw. The same things that stop most dreamers. What if I told you I have a property in the city centre, 25,000 square feet, prime location? What if I told you it's yours to develop however you want? Naomi sat up. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. Design your masterpiece, Naomi. Show the world what you're capable of. Why would you do this? Because watching you come alive when you talk about your work is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Because you've given me back my life, and I want to give you your dreams. Because I love you. And this is how I know how to show it. Naomi kissed him then, deep and passionate, and they made love for the first time in the library, surrounded by books and blueprints and the promise of tomorrow. But happiness, as Naomi was learning, is always temporary. The call came at 2 a.m. Naomi's mother's vitals were crashing. They needed to come immediately. The drive to the hospital was the longest of Naomi's life. Damien held her hand the entire way, his knuckles white with tension. "She can't die," Naomi whispered. "Not now. Not when everything is finally good." "She won't. She's strong, just like you." But when they arrived, Dr. Park met them with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Naomi. We've done everything we can. Her brain activity is declining. It's time to start thinking about end-of-life decisions. No, there has to be something else. Another treatment, another specialist. We've tried everything. I'm so sorry." Naomi collapsed into a chair beside her mother's bed. 3 years. 3 years of hoping, praying, believing that somehow her mother would wake up. And now it was ending. "This is my fault," she whispered. "If I'd driven her that day. If I'd been there." "Stop," Damien said firmly. He knelt beside her chair. "This is not your fault. You are not responsible for every tragedy that befalls the people you love. You've spent 3 years carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. Don't let it destroy you the way mine almost destroyed me. How do I let her go? You don't. You never let go of the people you love, but you stop letting their absence define your entire existence. You honor them by living fully, by being happy, by becoming everything they would have wanted you to be." Naomi looked at her husband through her tears, this man who'd been a stranger 4 months ago, and she realized he was right. Aunt Iris wouldn't have wanted her to drown in grief. Her mother wouldn't want her to sacrifice her happiness on the altar of guilt. "I need time with her, alone." Damien kissed her forehead. "I'll be right outside." Naomi spent the next 2 hours talking to her mother. She told her about the marriage, about Damien, about the connection between Aunt Iris's death and her current life. She told her about the building she was going to design, about the life she was going to build, about the love she'd found in the most unexpected place. "I need you to know that I'm going to be okay, Mom. I found someone who understands me, who sees all my broken parts and loves me anyway, who's teaching me that redemption is possible even when you think you don't deserve it. I wish you could meet him. I wish you could see the man he's become, the man he's still becoming." At 6:47 a.m., her mother's hand squeezed hers. Naomi's heart stopped. "Mom?" Another squeeze. Then her mother's eyes fluttered open for the first time in 3 years. "Naomi?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Mom! Oh my God! Mom!" Naomi screamed for the doctors, for Damien, for anyone. The hospital room erupted into organized chaos. Doctors running tests, nurses checking vitals, Damien standing in the doorway with tears streaming down his face. 3 days later, after extensive examinations and neurological testing, the doctors declared it a medical miracle. Naomi's mother was awake, aware, and beginning the long road to recovery. "I heard you," her mother told Naomi during one of her first lucid moments. "I heard everything, every visit, every story you read, every tear you cried. And I heard you talk about Damien. Mom, there's something you need to know about him." "He killed Iris." "I know." Her mother's voice was weak but firm. "I heard him confess to you. I heard everything." "I'm so sorry. If I'd known—" "Naomi, listen to me." Her mother reached out and took her hand. "Your Aunt Iris was the most forgiving person I ever knew. When she was alive, she used to say that everyone deserves a second chance, that people are more than their worst moments. If she were here, she'd want you to be happy. She'd want you to love someone who's trying to be better. She'd forgive him. You're not angry. I'm grateful. Because my daughter found love in a place where love shouldn't have been possible. That's not tragedy, sweetheart. That's transformation." When Damien finally worked up the courage to visit, Naomi's mother studied him for a long moment. "You're the man who killed my sister." "Yes, Mom." "And you're the man who loves my daughter." "With everything I am." "Then come here." She held out her hand. Any man who can bring my Naomi this much happiness, who can make her eyes light up the way they do when she talks about you, deserves a chance. Iris would have liked you, I think. She always saw the best in people. Damien took her hand, tears falling freely. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your trust. See that you do. 6 months after their courthouse wedding, Naomi and Damien stood in an actual church, surrounded by friends and family, and renewed their vows. This time, it was real. This time, they chose each other with full knowledge and full hearts. I never believed in redemption, Damien said, holding both of Naomi's hands. I thought some sins were too great to be forgiven, some mistakes too catastrophic to be overcome. But you taught me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a future that honors those we've lost. I will never forget the 15 people who died because of my negligence. But I will spend every day living in a way that makes their deaths mean something. And I will love you, Naomi Winters Whitlock, with every broken, healing part of my soul. I came into this marriage believing I was a prisoner, Naomi said through happy tears. But you showed me that sometimes our cages are made of our own guilt, our own fear, our own inability to forgive ourselves. You've taught me that loving someone doesn't mean overlooking their flaws. It means seeing all of them, the good, the bad, and the terrible, and choosing them anyway. I love you, Damien, not despite your past, but because of how you faced it, because of the man you're becoming. When they kissed, the entire church erupted in applause. 1 year later, Naomi stood in front of the Winters Whitlock Centre, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that dominated the city's skyline. It was her masterpiece, a mixed-use building that combined affordable housing, community spaces, and commercial offices. On the ground floor was a memorial to the 15 people who died in the factory fire, with Aunt Iris's name prominently displayed. What do you think? Damien asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. I think it's everything I dreamed of and more. Your mother arrives tomorrow for the grand opening. I still can't believe she's walking again. The physical therapy worked miracles. She's strong, like her daughter. Naomi leaned back against her husband's chest, watching the sun reflect off the building's facade. Do you ever think about how we started? How wrong everything was? Every day. And every day I'm grateful you refused to let me destroy myself. You saved my life, Naomi. We saved each other. As they stood there, watching their building touch the sky, Naomi reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them here. She'd been sold by her father, married to a stranger, thrown into a life she never chose. And somehow, impossibly, she'd found love in the darkness. Not the easy, simple love of fairy tales. The complicated, messy, hard-fought love that only comes from two broken people choosing to heal together. What are you thinking? Damien asked. I'm thinking that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best parts of our lives. I'm thinking that every ending is a beginning, every mistake is a lesson. Every tragedy is an opportunity for transformation. I'm thinking that I love you more than I ever thought possible. Even knowing everything you know. Especially knowing everything I know. Because you're not the man who caused that fire anymore, Damien. You're the man who spent 8 years trying to make things right. You're the man who visits my mother every week and reads to children at the community centre. You're the man who loves me so completely that I sometimes forget how to breathe. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, but you've got me anyway. For better or worse, remember? I remember. I remember everything. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Damien and Naomi stood together in front of the building that represented everything they'd overcome. Behind them, the memorial to 15 lost lives. Ahead of them, a future full of possibility. And in that moment, Naomi understood something profound. Redemption isn't about erasing your sins. It's about learning to live with them, to grow from them, to become someone worthy of a second chance. She'd married a monster and found a man. She'd been sold into servitude and found freedom. She'd lost everything and gained the world. Because sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that begin with tragedy. The ones where two broken people find each other in the darkness and choose, against all logic, to be each other's light. "Come on," Naomi said, taking Damien's hand. "Let's go home." And as they walked away from the building that would stand as a testament to their love, to their pain, to their redemption, the city lights began to flicker on one by one, illuminating the night with possibilities neither of them had dared to dream. If this story touched your soul, if it made you believe that love can conquer even the darkest past, then subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and comment, transformed below, to tell us what redemption means to you. Because at the end of the day, we're all just broken people trying to find our way home. And sometimes, home is a person who sees our scars and loves us, not despite them, but because of the journey they represent. Until next time, remember, your past doesn't define you. Your response to it does. And it's never too late to choose love over fear, hope over despair, and redemption over regret. This is your story. Make it extraordinary.